of the insightful program. Today, we'll be diving deep into the revised expatriate salary and employment pass policy with our Expat Service Center. A little bit on the housekeeping rules before we begin. Just a quick reminder. After the presentation, there will be a QR code for you to scan and send in your questions as well as share your valuable feedback with us. This session will last approximately 1 hour. The briefing session is held in response to the Ministry of Home Affairs press release on 14 January 2026, following the Cabinet's approval of the revised expatriate salary policy on 17 October 2025. The policy comes into full effect on 1st June 2026. The revisions support the broader objectives of RMK 13 by introducing a clearer employment framework aimed at strengthening Malaysia's overall talent landscape. To assist industry in this transition, MDEC is conducting these engagement sessions to provide clear explanations of the policy requirements, implementation approach, and the process involved. Our focus is to ensure stakeholders have the clarity needed to navigate the changes smoothly. Aligned with Malaysia Madani, MDEC remains committed to implementing these policy updates in a balanced and inclusive way, supporting national priority and the development of local talent. Without further delay, let's kick off our program with the presentation session by Puan Dina Wahid from the MDEC Expat Service Center. Puan Dina, the floor is yours. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Siva. Okay. I'm sharing. Yeah, thank you so much, Siva. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, everyone. Salam Ramadan to all the Muslims. Okay, so we have a total of 500 participants in the room joining us today. So thank you for taking the time to attend these sessions. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, today's briefing is intended to provide an overview of the revised expatriate salary and requirements and employment pass policy, which will take effect on 1st June 2026, as announced by the Ministry of Home Affairs. So this revision is part of the government's ongoing efforts to ensure that Malaysians remain competitive and attractive for global investment, while at the same time strengthening the development of the local talent and workforce capabilities. So during these sessions, I will walk through the key policy changes, the transitions and application scenarios, as well as the common questions raised by the employers, just to help companies better understand how the revised policy will apply in practice and prepare ahead of the implementation dates. So I will also share a few practical examples along the way to make the implementation clearer. Okay, what we will cover today. Okay, so before we go into the details, let me briefly share the flow of today's sessions. We will start with a short introductions to the revised policy framework. Next, we will go through the key changes to the employment pass policy, particularly those that may impact companies. So I will then walk through several applications and transition scenarios, followed by some common questions raised by employers. Finally, we will move into the Q&A sessions where you may submit your questions through the Q&R code provide at the end of the presentation slide, so that you may focus on briefing during the sessions. Okay. Okay. As mentioned earlier, the revised expatriate salary requirements and employment pass policy will take effect on 1st June 2026, as announced by the Ministry of Home Affairs. So this revision aims to ensure a more structured and sustainable approach in managing expatriates' employment in Malaysia. So there are 4 key objectives behind this policy revision. First, to promote more strategic and sustainable employment of expatriates in Malaysia aligned with the national workforce priorities. Second, to strengthen the development of local talent through structured transfer of knowledge, skills, and expertise from expatriates to the Malaysian workforce. Third, to support the employers in planning their workforce transition effectively while ensuring business continuity. And finally, the revised framework also aligned with the principle of Malaysia Madani, which emphasized progressive, transparent, and well-structured policy that support long-term national talent development. So overall, the revised framework aims to ensure that expatriate employment continues to support Malaysia's economic growth while strengthening knowledge transfers and talent development among Malaysians. So as the facilitating agency, MDEC will support the implementation of this framework by ensuring that applications are assessed in line with the policy requirements set by the relevant authorities. So with this objective in mind, let us now look at the key changes introduced under the revised employment pass framework. Okay, so this slide provides a side-by-side comparison between the current employment pass framework and the revised policy that will take effect on 1st June 2026. So the purpose of this slide is to help companies clearly see what has changed under the new framework, particularly in terms of salary threshold, employment duration, and dependent eligibility. Okay, let us first look at the employment pass category 1. So under the current policy, the minimum basic salaries requirement is 10,000 and above. So under the revised framework, this threshold will be increased to 20,000 ringgit and above. Okay. In terms of employment duration, the current policy does not specify a fixed maximum period. However, the contract duration is typically capped at a maximum of 3 to 5 years. So under the revised framework, this will be extended up to 10 years, providing more flexibility for companies that require long-term strategic expatriate roles. For dependent eligibility, there is no change, and expatriate under category 1 may continue to bring their eligible dependents to Malaysia. Okay, moving on to employment pass category 2. Under the current policy, the salary range for category 2 is 5,000 to 9,999 ringgit. Under the revised framework, this will be adjusted to 10,000 to 19,999 ringgit. In terms of employment duration, the current policy also does not specify a fixed maximum period. However, the contract duration EP category 2 is generally limited to a maximum of 2 years, and under the revised framework, the maximum employment duration may go up to 10 years, subject to the implementation of a succession plan. So this succession plan is intended to ensure that expatriate contributes to knowledge transfers and capability development among local employees during their tenure. Similar to category 1, expatriate under category 2 will also be allowed to bring their eligible dependents. Okay, next we look at the employment pass category 3. So under the current policy, the salary range is 3,000 to 4,999 ringgit. Under the revised framework, will be increased to 5,000 to 9,999 ringgit. In terms of employment duration, the current policy also does not specify a fixed maximum period. However, the contract duration for EP category 3 is generally limited to 1 year per approval. So under the revised policy, the employment duration may be extended up to 5 years. Again, subject to the implementation of a succession plan. So one key change under the revised framework is that dependent eligibility will now be extended to non-MD companies. So previously, this was not available to MD status company, to non-MD status company. So overall, the revised framework introduced a higher salary threshold, more structured employment duration, and stronger emphasis on knowledge transfers and local talent development. These changes are intended to ensure that expatriate employment remains strategic while supporting the long-term development of Malaysia's workforce. Okay, now that we have seen this, the detailed comparison between the current and the revised framework, let us move to the next slide, which summarize the key elements of the revised pass policy. Okay, so this slide summarize the main components introduced, that introduced under the revised policy framework, which will take effect on 1st June 2026. Okay. Okay, so the revised framework will come into effect on 1st June 2026 and will apply to both new application and renewal applications submitted from the date onwards. Another key element under the revised framework is the updated minimum salary threshold for each employment pass category. It is important to note that salary refers to the basic monthly salary that is taxable in Malaysia. Allowance, including fixed allowance, variable allowance, incentive bonuses, or salary paid outside Malaysia are not included in the calculation. The revised policy also introduced a more structured approach to employment duration. The duration will be assessed based on the same employer, the same position, and the same employment pass category. This means that the duration is strictly tied to the employing company, ensuring clearer monitoring of the expatriate employment tenure. So another enhancement relates to dependent eligibility, as highlighted in the earlier slide. Under the revised framework, dependent eligibility will now be extended to non-MD companies for employment pass category 3, whereas previously this was not available. So finally, the revised framework introduced a mandatory succession plan for employment pass 2 and category 2 and category 3. So under this requirement, companies are expected to outline how knowledge, skill, and expertise will be transferred to local employees during the expatriate tenure. This does not mean the expatriate role must be immediately replaced. Rather, companies are expected to demonstrate a structured plan for developing local talent over time. So the intention is to ensure that expatriate not only contribute to business operations, but also support the development of local workforce capabilities through knowledge and skill transfers. Okay. Okay, so with this overview of the key policy elements, let us now look at how the revised policy may apply in different application scenarios, particularly for existing employment pass holders and future applications. Okay, this slide illustrates how the revised employment pass policy will apply to existing employment pass holder during the transition period leading up to 1 June 2026. So the key principles to understand here is that applicable policy depends on the renewal submission date, not the expiry date of the current pass. So to simplify this, there are two key rules companies should remember for renewal application during this transition period. First, the renewal applications must be submitted within the normal 3 months renewal window before the pass expiry date. Second, if this company wishes to for the application to be assessed under the current employment pass policy, the renewal application must be submitted before 1st June 2026. Okay, so let us look at a few examples to illustrate how this works. So in the first example, if the employment pass expires on 1st May 2026, the renewal applications can be submitted within the normal 3 months window, which is between 2nd February and 1 May 2026. Since the submission takes place before 1 June 2026, the application will be assessed under the current employment pass policy. Okay, so in the second example, the pass expires on 1st July 2026. The renewal window falls under between 2 April and 1 July 2026. If the company submits the renewal application before 1 June, the application may still be assessed under the current policy. However, if the renewal application is submitted on or after 1st June 2026, the application will then be assessed under the revised employment pass policy. So in the third examples, where the passes expire on 1st December 2026, the entire renewal windows falls under after the implementation date, which means the renewal application will be automatically be assessed under the revised policy framework. Okay. So the example in the second table below illustrate how revised policy will apply after the renewal takes place. For instance, if a company currently has a non-MD employment pass category 3 holder whose pass is valid until 1 December 2026, the existing conditions will continue to apply until the pass expires. Under the current framework, non-MD category 3 pass holders are not eligible to bring dependents, and there is no succession plan requirements. However, once the pass is renewed under the revised policy framework, the new policy conditions will apply. So under the revised framework, dependent eligibility will be allowed and the company will be required to provide the succession plan as required for category 2 and category 3 applications. Okay. All right, so based on our engagement with the companies and the questions we have received so far, these are some of the common questions raised by the employees regarding the revised policy. Okay, so the first question here is, if our expatriate already holds a valid employment pass, will the revised policy affect the current pass? Okay, the answer to this is, existing employment pass will remain valid until their expiry date. Okay. However, any new applications or renewals submitted on or after 1 June 2026 will be assessed based on the revised policy requirements. Okay. Number two, second question. Okay, if we submit our application before 1 June 2026, but it is approved after that date, which policy will apply? Okay. This one, basically a complete application submitted before 1 June 2026 will be assessed under the existing policy framework, even if the approval takes place after the implementation date. So what is complete application? Okay, a complete application here refers to a submission where all required documents and information are provided in accordance with the checklist requirements at the point of submission. Okay, let's go to the next question on the renewal planning. So the question sounds, if the renewal applications must be submitted within 3 months before the pass expiry date, can companies submit the renewal earlier than in order to be assessed under the existing policy before 1 June 2026? Okay, renewal application must be submitted within 3 months prior to the expiry date of the current pass. So as such, applications cannot be submitted earlier than the stipulated 3 months window, because companies must ensure their plan accordingly based on the pass expiry date and also the policy implementation timeline. Okay. Okay, next move to the these questions on the new policy requirements. Okay, some of you might also asking what is the succession plan, or we call it a plan pergantian. Okay, so this requirement applies to employment pass category 2 and category 3. So what is the succession plan? It is a structured plan by the employer to prepare local employees to replace expatriate roles within the stipulated employment period. So this plan may include the following, okay? Identifying roles and responsibility that will be taken over by local employees, training and mentoring, including knowledge transfer from expatriate to local employees. And also, we are expecting to company to provide an appropriate timeline to ensure that local employees are ready with the required skill and capabilities. So planning companies also have to plan to ensure that smooth operations, so the transition does not affect productivity or organization performance. Okay, all right. So if there also a question where a company is asking if there is a template, right? So at the moment, we have no template, but this is basically the guideline for the employers in managing the further resources sustainability while ensuring expatriate contribute to the growth of the local talent. Okay. Okay, these two questions focusing on the durations is on the questions is on the duration rules. So number 5 is the employment duration calculated based on the expatriate or the employing company? Okay, the employment duration is tied to the employing company, not the individual's expatriate. So if the expatriate changes employer, the duration calculation will restart based on the new employment. So when does the complete calculation of the expatriate's duration begin? The employment duration calculation will begin from 1st June 2026. If the expatriate changes employer, the duration calculation will restart based on the new employment. If there is a change of past category, the duration will restart from the issuance date of the new category. Okay. All right. Number 7 is still on the duration rules. So if an expatriate has reached the maximum duration under this EP category, can the pass be renewed? Okay, in general, once the expatriate has reached the maximum employment duration for the respective employment pass category, further renewal under the same category will not be allowed. Companies are encouraged to plan their workforce transition accordingly. Okay. This one is under salary and category. Number 10. Number 8. Our expatriate currently holds EP category 2 with a salary 5,000. Can the same category be maintained upon renewal after 1st June 2026? So after 1st June 2026, application will be assessed based on the revised salary threshold. The applicable EP category will therefore depends on whether the declared salary meets the new requirements. Okay, so the last questions will be: will company be required to cancel existing passes if the categories changes? Okay, so if a renewal results in a change of pass category under the revised salary, the existing pass will need to be cancelled before a new pass is issued. However, the expatriate will not be required to exit Malaysia during this process. Okay, that's all. Well then, back to you, Siva.
Thank you, Puan Nordina, for that incredible insight session. Ladies and gentlemen, next we'll be moving into our question and answer session. Kindly scan the QR code and send in your questions as well as share your valuable feedback with us. We will give you 5 minutes to send your questions in our panelists to curate the answers. Okay, guys, ready? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing a number of interesting questions coming in, especially around the different scenarios and the specifics of the policy. Thank you for your active participation. Now, I would like to invite Puan No, Dina, and Puan Faiza again for the question and answer session. Let me start with these first questions. Puan Dina, ready?
Okay.
If we submit the application before 1st June 2026, but MDEC only reviews it after 1st June, which policy applies?
Okay. All right. Applications that submitted before 1st June 2026 will be assessed under the existing policy. Even the assessment or approval takes place after the implementation date.
Noted. What happens if the application submitted before 1st June is written for amendment and resubmitted after 1st June?
Okay, when the original submission was made before 1st June 2026, the application will generally continue to be assessed under the existing policy as it forms part of the same application cycles. However, companies should ensure that submission are complete to avoid delays during the transition period. So do remember that for the incomplete submission will be subject to the revised policy.
Noted. Moving on to the third question. If an existing EP holder's salaries does not meet the new minimum salary requirement, can they still renew their pass?
Okay, let me answer for this question. Okay, for those renewal application that submitted after 1st June 2026 is subject to the revised salary or will be under this new policy. As such, the company has to ensure the salary that submitted to us is meet the minimum. If not, then you can't apply the employment pass for this applicant even though it was a renewal. Because after 1st June, the minimum salary for hiring the EP3 will be 5,000 still lagi under the new policy. Okay, I hope it's clear for you guys.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the fourth question. If an expatriate has already worked many years in Malaysia, does the maximum duration apply to their entire career in Malaysia?
Under the revised framework, the calculation of the expatriate employment period is tied to the employing company, and the duration calculation will start from 1st June 2026. If the expatriate change employer, the duration will begin from the date of employment with the new company.
Noted. We have a question on succession plan here, the fifth question. What happens if the company cannot localize the role due to specialized or foreign language requirements?
The succession plan is intended to demonstrate structured knowledge transfer and local talent development. So companies may provide justification where full localization is not companies may provide justification because we know that full localization is not immediately feasible. So the focus is on demonstrating efforts towards skills transfers and knowledge workforce development over time.
Okay, noted. We have the sixth question more on EP category downgrade. If an EP holder's salary drops and falls into a lower EP category, what will happen?
Okay, the existing pass needs to be cancelled before we can proceed for approval under the EP category, the new EP category.
We take note. The seventh question will be on dependents. Can existing EP3 holders bring dependents after 1st June 2026?
All right. Okay. Let me answer for this question. Okay. Currently, it doesn't have an impact. Okay. For those who are, for those applicant under MD category. Okay. But this is more close to non-MD companies. Okay. As you all knows that EP3 category can't bring their dependents. So for those applications that been approved after 1st June 2026, okay, they can bring their dependent pass, okay, their dependents. All right. But if let's say the application approved before the first June, they have to wait until they are renewal the pass, then only they can bring the dependent. Okay.
Question number 8. Do we need to identify a specific local employee immediately for the succession plan?
Okay, like I mentioned earlier, companies are encouraged to identify a potential local successor early. However, if a specific individual has not yet been identified, the company may still outline a plan to develop local capability for that role. So this may include identifying a team or function where successor will come from, and then providing training or exposure to relevant local staff, and progressively preparing a local employees to assume the role in the future. So the key expectation is that the company demonstrate efforts and commitment to develop local talent.
Okay, moving down to question number 9. What if the role requires specialized or foreign language skills?
Okay. When this, I believe this is more from the GBS company, right? Whereby most of the positions that require for the required native speakers like Vietnamese, Tagalogs, and Thai, and etc. So for this case, okay, the company may explain the operational requirement in the succession. Sorry, the company can justify, okay, in the succession plans, okay, what are their planning, okay. Instead of full localization, maybe they can still bring in the local, but with the minimums, with the, to say that one, dengan tak banyak lah. So partial localizations tu, what the local can do for that kind of positions, the knowledge transfer, maybe in terms of communication skills, it depends on the company, and also developing supporting function that can be handled by local for these certain positions. Actually, basically what the, like my Puan Lina explained earlier about this succession plan and the intention of government is that they want to ensure that the knowledge and the capability from the expatriate are slowly being transferred to our local workforce. Okay, so sooner or later we can, our local talent may have the same skill as the expatriate. Okay, what?
Moving down to question number 10. What happens if the company cannot fully replace the expatriate?
Okay, again, like I mentioned earlier, if let's say that positions or the company says that positions cannot be replaced but by local, for example, let's say the position is like for the market niche for like maybe for the Arabic language can't be replaced. So again, the company can justify, okay, in their succession plan why it cannot be filled up by local, but still company needs to make some efforts to bring in local to their company, because they can't be 100% all positions to be filled up by the expatriate. Okay, so and furthermore, this localizations is not fully needs to be done or needs to be hired like immediately. You guys have like ample time, 5 years, 10 years to bring in or to transfer the knowledge to the expatriate, to the local talents for this one. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, this policy again to encourage company to ensure that not only the investment, but also you are contributing in developing our local talents through the structured knowledge transfer and succession planning.
Moving down to question number 11. What happens to existing expatriates who are already in Malaysia but do not meet the new salary threshold?
Okay. Application that submitted before 1st June 2026 will continue to be assessed under the existing policy. However, renewal application submitted on or after 1st June 2026 will be subject to the revised salary requirements and policy conditions. So companies are therefore encouraged to review the expatriate workforce planning early and assess whether adjustments are required for future renewals. Okay.
Moving to our next question, if the role requires a native language or foreign market knowledge, how can we localize the position?
Okay, the policy recognise that certain roles may require specific language capabilities and specialized expertise. So in such cases, the company may explain the business justification and outline how knowledge transfer or capability development can still take place within the organization. For example, training local staff in technical or operational aspect, gradually transferring non-language related responsibility to local employees. And the focus is to ensure the expatriate contribute to building local capability where possible.
Moving down to the next question, does the maximum employment duration apply to the expatriate's entire career in Malaysia?
The employment duration is generally tied to the employing company and pass category. If the expatriate changes employer or changes pass category, the employment duration will be reassessed accordingly based on the new arrangement. So companies should therefore plan the expatriate workforce strategy with the stipulated employment duration framework in mind.
Next question, what if the company cannot find a suitable local employee to replace the expatriate?
Okay, the succession plan is intended to demonstrate structured efforts to develop local capability. If it does not necessarily mean an immediate replacement must be achieved. So companies may the expectation is that company shows a reasonable effort towards localization over time.
Next question, will the new policy affect current application process timeline?
Okay, this new policy actually they do not have it's not going to have any impact on the processing timelines, but it will be affected the timeline if let's say the application that you submitted to us is incomplete, because every time you submit incomplete, you have to return back, and then again you have when you resubmit, the processing time will become 0 and they have to follow the new queuing, so that is going to be impacted on the processing. All right, so I really encourage company, please, again, like I mentioned, always mention and remind the company, please to ensure that the application are completed, okay, and aligned with the updated policy, especially when the due date for the old policy is become to end, so that you can still enjoy the benefit under the old policy ataupun the old schemes category. All right.
Next question, why does EP1 not require a succession plan? If the purpose of the policy is localization, why is EP1 exempted?
Okay. EP Category 1 generally involves high level or strategic position with a higher salary threshold and specialized expertise. So these roles are typically intended for leadership, decision making, or maybe highly specialized function where localization may not be immediate. So for this reason, the succession planning requirement focuses on EP Category 2 and 3, where structured knowledge transfer to the local workforce can be more clearly implemented.
Moving to the next question, can expatriates work indefinitely by changing companies? For example, if the expatriate changes company every few years, does the duration reset?
Okay. So this is quite heavy questions for us to answer. The revised framework calculates the employment duration based on employing company. So however, the overall objective of the company policy remains to ensure structured expatriate employment and progressive localizations of the workforce. So applications will continue to be assessed based on the merits of the role and the company's workforce planning.
Okay, as we have hot questions still coming in. Question number 19 at the moment, is the new policy meant to reduce foreign investment?
Obviously not. The policy is not intended to restrict investment, but rather to ensure that expatriate employment supports sustainable workforce development and knowledge transfer to Malaysians, while allowing companies to continue accessing global expertise when necessary.
Moving to our next question, what happens if the application submitted before 1st June is returned for amendments and resubmitted after 1st June?
Okay, where the original submission was made before 1 June 2026, the application will generally continue to be processed within the same application cycle in accordance with the applicable policy framework. However, companies should ensure that submissions are complete to avoid delays during the transition period. So if addition to information is required during the assessment process, companies may provide the necessary clarification or supporting documents to enable the application to be reviewed accordingly.
Okay, we have the next question. If an employment pass is still valid, but the renewal is submitted after 1st June 2026, which policy will apply?
Okay, I think this one also repeated question. Renewal application submitted from 1st June 2026 onwards will be assessed under the revised policy framework. So existing passes that remain valid will continue to be recognized until their expiry date lah.
We have the next question. Do existing employment pass holders need to resubmit their applications when the new policy takes effect?
No, existing employment pass holders whose passes remain valid do not need to resubmit their applications. However, any renewal applications submitted after 1st June 2026 will be subject to the revised policy requirements.
Noted. Next question. If an existing EP holder salary does not meet the revised salary requirement, can the pass still be renewed?
I think repeated. Okay, renewal application submitted after 1st June 2026 will be assessed under the revised salary threshold applicable to the respective EP category. So companies are encouraged to review their workforce planning to ensure alignment with the revised requirements.
Next question. The revised salary threshold is significantly higher. Will this make Malaysia less competitive compared to the other countries?
Okay, the intention of the revised policy is not to discourage investment or the employment of expatriate. Rather, it aims to ensure that expatriates are brought in for roles that require specialized skills and expertise. At the same time, the policy encourages structured knowledge transfer to support the development of Malaysian talent. So Malaysia continues to remain open to foreign investment and global expertise.
Next question. We have expatriates currently earning below the new salary threshold. What will happen when we renew their passes?
Okay, existing passes will remain valid until their expiry date. However, any renewals submitted on or after 1st June 2026 will be assessed based on the revised salary requirements. So company may wish to review their expatriate salary structure early to ensure alignment with the revised framework.
Moving on to the next question. If an expatriate is no longer meets the salary requirement for EP category 2, can they downgrade to category 3?
All right, definitely. If let's say they did not meet okay, for example, let's say right now the applicant salary is 9,000, which is under EP category 2. But upon renewal, the salary is like maintained like maybe 9,200, whereby automatically from the EP2 is going to be EP3. Yes, it still can be renewed, but duration will be different. They might not be enjoyed for 2 years. It will be 1 year and renewable.
Next question. Can companies submit renewals earlier to avoid being accessed under the revised policy?
The renewal application can only be submitted within 3 months before the past expiry date. As such, company are advised to plan ahead based on their expatriates' past expiry dates and the implementation timeline of the revised policy.
What happens if expatriate has already reached the maximum employment duration under their EP category?
Okay, in general, the maximum duration is intended to encourage workforce localization over time. Okay, however, exemptions may be considered for employment pass category 1, particularly where the expatriate plays a key role in the company and there is a strong business justification.
How does this policy affect multinational companies that frequently rotate talent across countries?
Okay, Malaysia recognized the importance of global talent mobility, especially for multinational organization. So companies may still bring in expatriates for specialized roles. However, the revised framework emphasized ensuring the expatriate expertise contributes to the development of the local talent over time.
Next question. Will this policy affect Malaysia's attractiveness as a destination for foreign investment?
Yeah, Malaysia remains committed to supporting investor and facilitating business operations. So the revised framework aims to ensure that expatriate employment continues to bring strategic value while strengthening Malaysia's long-term talent ecosystems. And of course, MDEC will continue to work closely with companies to support their workforce planning needs.
Okay, moving on to the next question. If we have submitted our application before 1st June, but it's processed after the date, which policy will apply?
Okay, repeated questions. Applications submitted before the implementation date will generally be assessed under the existing policy.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, due to the time constraint, we shall be taking 2 more questions, if it's okay with Puan Nordina.
Okay, 2 more.
So we have the questions here with us. Okay. What should companies start doing now to prepare for the new policy?
Okay, companies may consider reviewing their expatriate workforce structure, salary alignment with the revised threshold, and planning for knowledge transfer initiative. Early preparation will definitely help and ensure a smoother transitions once the revised policy takes effect on the 1st June 2026.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we come to the final questions. If this policy meant to be reduce the number of expatriates in Malaysia?
Yeah, so that obviously the policy is not intended to reduce expatriate presence, but rather to ensure that expatriates are employed strategically in roles that require specialized expertise. So at the same time, it encouraged the development of Malaysians' talent through structured knowledge transfer.
Okay, thank you very much, Puan Nordina and Puan Nur Faiza. As we have come to an end of our session, I would like to thank you, Puan Nordina Wahid and Puan Faiza, for sharing her valuable insights with us today. For any questions that we didn't manage to address during the session, our team will follow up with the responses. We'll follow up with the responses and share them with registered participants via a separate email. We will also share the presentation slides after the session. Stay safe, everyone. Stay inspired, and we will see you the next time. Goodbye.
Recording stop.